Hello, ladies. So glad to see you all popping in and arriving. Lovely to have you in my temple here in my home temple in Ashland, Oregon. I know some of you are calling in from farther away, and I've been getting emails and excitement about being here this evening on this beautiful spring. I don't know where you are, but here in Ashland, it was a stunningly beautiful day. I have a huge flower tree in my front yard, and there are pink blossoms everywhere. And just really loving the beauty of it and the magic of watching the seasons change and come. So I am leaving everybody muted, both for video and for audio at this point, so that I'm going to just jump on in and get going because we've got ladies coming in, and my experience with this is you all will continue to jump in, and so instead of being interrupted by those who continue to come, we'll just get started because I have a lot to cover today, and I have a lot I want to share. And your questions have been coming in through email, so that's been really awesome too. I have a chat screen on my right side of my screen that I'm looking at. So as you're all showing up, you're here and you can chat with me when the time comes. When I'm on a big roll, I might not be watching real closely, but we'll have some time for that Q&A at the end. So some of you I know, some of you I don't. I'm Kim Keller. I'm a sex and intimacy coach. I've been deeply immersed in the study of my own study of Tantra and Tantric principles for about going on 14 years. Was surprised to find out that what I really was called to do was to be able to teach and share what I was learning through this new experience of Tantra. I come from a background of being a coach and a teacher, and mostly with young people. I was a drug prevention counselor and alcohol and drug counselor for 25 years and worked with middle school, high school, and college age students, and always found it really easy to talk with them about intimacy and teen sex and what they needed to be considering and thinking about, and really how to support them holding their sexual and intimate interactions as really like valuable. And at the time, that was the word I had, was valuable, and really holding yourself in high value. And now, all these years later, through my own exploration and my own awakening, I find Tantra, and I find that actually sex isn't just valuable, it's sacred. And when we start to return to the sacred nature of our sexuality, and we start to heal and move away from perhaps a lifetime of shame or guilt or insecurity or not good enough or not sure enough, then we can really start to open up into the delightful, sacred, juicy, wonderful, life-enhancing, vibrancy-creating, chemical-flowing. We have a brain full of pharmaceuticals that wants to bring us into balance, that wants to bring us joy and pleasure. And we've gotten so far away from really accessing that part of our pharmaceutical cornucopia that we carry through a long time of sexual shame and disconnection and oppression. It continues today in ways that are heart-wrenching, painful, and heartbreaking to know that sex can be so used as a tool of control, used as a tool of oppression and separation. And so my life purpose really is to introduce us back to the juicy part of ourselves that perhaps has never had a chance to really be in the fore and really guide our life. Maybe it's never been there. Maybe it was and it got damaged or injured. Maybe it's gotten shamed. There's a lot of our sexual disconnection that comes really from the cultural overlay that's around us. We get enculturated in, we can use sex to sell cars and beer, but to talk about it in a sacred and healthy way, and in a way that is actually vitally important to our overall health and wellness. So that's what I want to talk about tonight. Is I'm going to go directly into talking about, so what does Jade Egg, and I have my egg here, I have notes, I have things, and I have the egg right here. I know I do. Where did my egg go? I have everything else. Okay, I'm going to grab my egg. I'll be right back. And actually, it's not my personal egg that I'm grabbing, because my personal egg is in my vagina. I really have come to trust the wisdom that I access through deeply connecting to my womb space, to my whole vaginal creative center. And one of the ways that I do that is to utilize and use my stone when I'm doing anything that is heart-based, that I really want to speak clearly about. And so I have a whole bowl of eggs. And what I want to show you is a jade egg. This is the basic medium-sized egg. When you look for eggs, you'll find that they come in a variety of sizes. There's one that's a little bit smaller than this. It's more the size of an olive. That's actually pretty advanced jade egg use. It's a little bit more, takes a little more articulation and knowledge of the muscles in your vaginal canal to be able to hold on to it. And then there's another one that's larger, about so, and it's pretty heavy. It's actually very heavy. And so also takes some extra control to be able to hold on to that bigger, heavier stone. But I have some things to say about how much weight we're moving in our vaginal canal, how much we're stressing those muscles, and why we don't want to overstress them. So I'm going to talk about that in a bit. But this is the medium-sized egg. This is the one that I most recommend to begin with. It's also the one that the beginning recommendation is to use the stone of jade. This is the ancient practice of jade egg, is 4,000 years old. And the purists of jade egg would say jade's really the way to go all the time. It's considered a stone of detoxification and purification, so it has some essence of that as a stone. And thinking, if you're one who's interested in the medicine that comes from the mineral content, from it being a crystalline stone, that it carries a certain energy. And so there's lots of different kinds of stones that you can get. When you go into shops or look online, you can get them in rose quartz or rhodonite, or lots of different stones. Different stones carry different properties. It's not my specialty. It's not what I am most educated about, is the medicine of the different stones. Although, after 7 years of my own jade practice, I did start to, and have and continue to, move into working with other stones and seeing what starts to move in my body, what's some of the energetics that come from the different stones. So I'll talk a little bit about that at the end as well. But jade is what I'm going to mostly talk about. I'm going to use the term yoni. That yoni is the whole of our sacred space. Yoni translates to sacred space. That's what that word means. And it's Sanskrit, and it encompasses everything in our, what is also known as the second chakra, the womb space, the ovarian space, the tubes, the cervix, the vaginal canal, the vulva. All of that area is considered yoni, sacred space. The sacred space that is pretty mythic and magical. You know, we take in a soul and give it out as a human, which is a pretty powerful space. So What I want to talk about is the areas that we talk about the jade egg impacting. I want to start with, this is a practice that I equate very much to going to the gym, that you can go to the gym and there are weights to lift and treadmills to get on and bikes to pedal. And it is not the bike, the treadmill, or the weights that do the health promoting part of our body. It's how we use those tools that creates our body's response and our body's reaction, whether we're strengthening ourselves or whether we're circulating, getting our circulation going, or opening our cardiovascular. What we do with those tools is what we then become responsible for. How do we use them well, and do we know what we're doing? And that this is a tool very much like that. The egg in and of itself is just a stone egg. But using the stone well, knowing what you're working with, going deeper into that inner landscape, your own inner landscape. And that part is where the beauty of what the stone impacts. Let me start with that. The beauty of what the stone impacts. Our yoni, vaginal canal, vulva, is approached typically in one of four ways. It's approached for hygiene, and we have monthly things where it needs a little extra hygiene, cleanliness, shower. We take care of it in that way. We have babies. It has pleasure. And so somebody or something is working toward pleasure. It's being penetrated toward pleasure. Typically our sexual interactions are kind of goal-oriented toward pleasure. And the last one is that yoni gets touched also sometimes when it doesn't want to be. Unwanted, unsolicited, and non-consensual touch. So this one is a violation. So there's four kind of ways that yoni gets used to being interacted with. One of the first things that moving into a jade egg practice does that I love, and I think is really the tagline for the whole thing, is that I am taking a tool and I am going to take really my intention, my heart, my own desire for my embodiment and for my connection to myself and for my own fullness. I'm going to, with love and purposefulness, approach my own yoni without all of those other things in mind. So it's a non-goal oriented approach. It's purely for the love of it, for the love of yoni. And when you think about approaching yourself that way, approaching her for the love of her, and then the care of her, and the way that we can hold her in such sacred, reverent, honoring space. That's the first thing about jade egg practice. Some people, you can look online and you can see other people who teach in different kinds of ways, and they kind of teach it like a sport. Like it's a fun thing, and you can pop it in and go to the gym, and you can lift things with it, and you can strengthen so much that you could lift a stool or lift a couch. You'll see a woman who likes to move a couch with her yoni egg. And I want to say that breaks my heart in some ways. That number one, there's damage that can be done if we overlift with our vaginal canal muscles. We can over tighten them and make them become tense and hard. I think of it like somebody who goes to the gym a lot and they lift so many weights and they get so muscle built that they can't touch their nose anymore because everything is so tense and so tight. And we can do the same thing to our vaginal canal, as we can over strengthen it, over tighten it. And if we do that and we create that kind of tension, our womb space is held in a hammock. There are muscles and tendons, and all of that wants to stay lifted and alive. But if we over pull it, it actually pulls on the different parts of our skeleton, pulls on your tailbone, throws your skeletal alignment off, and can actually create far more trouble than it's healing. So when it comes to lifting that bigger stone, or there are, when you go online, you can look for weightlifting kits where you can actually add a weight to the egg. So you're lifting a weight and you can add to that weight and get stronger and stronger and stronger. And I think I know the science of that is that we end up overtoning and becoming, now we have pelvic tension, and now we have other trouble that creates. So pelvic tension is something too that some women struggle with even without lifting the stone. So if you're one who knows that you have a pelvic tension issue, I'm going to say then it's not for strengthening that you're going to use the stone. It's for actually relaxing, softening, releasing, letting go of that tension and tightness in the vaginal canal. So the stone works the way that you need it to. And so it takes some self-awareness about your own vaginal canal. And so now back to the jade egg practice, asking you to approach Yoni with love and reverence and care and intention and understanding, wanting to know her. Now I'm becoming more acquainted with the state of my vaginal canal, which takes us to, I want to say well, I'm going to switch subjects here for a minute. There's 4 areas that the egg is really said to impact, and I'm going to get into those 4 areas. I want to make sure I kind of got my setup for the egg itself, and said everything I wanted to say about that. So give me just a minute to make sure. So what I really want to go into is this healing approach toward Yoni. There's 4 areas that jade egg practice is said to really affect and have a healing and a changing area, healing and changing outcome. The 4 areas are, there's healing, changing, and strengthening and relaxing in the physical. Things like PMS and menopause, premenopause, postmenopause, painful sex, loss of libido, those physical things that might be going on with your vaginal area and the healing properties that the stone can impact. I'm going to come back to those in a minute. That is oftentimes a woman's reason to get in the door toward jade egg, or working with somebody like me where we're working on intimacy and sexuality. Oftentimes it's a physical reason that gets them here. The second one is the emotional healing that the stone helps support, and how the stone works inside the vagina, as well as what it does around our emotional relationship to her when we start to go in that intentional reverence space. So there's the emotional healing. There's a thinking and intellectual piece. And this is where so many of us, we have like shame and guilt, and we don't really know what's going on down there. And it's kind of in the dark, and we don't talk about it much, and we certainly don't share about it much. We don't have places to really come in and be able to be in our full sexual, communication about things. And so when we start to work with the egg, we start to find a place where that mental alignment starts to change. I'm going to talk more about that. And the 4th area is that this is also a very meditative connecting. It comes from a yogic approach. It comes from that place of going deep inside with breath and movement to open and connect with whatever that higher field of energy is, that place where we connect into the divine feminine, into that flow of wisdom that we have also been incredibly separated from in our current culture. Our current culture really is asking us to really think in a linear kind of way, and we've got to take care of things, and we've got calendars and clocks and plans and agendas and places to be and things to do, and that's all good and fine. However, we can get so sidetracked and so focused on all of that goal-oriented movement that what we get removed from is the feminine intuition, the feminine wisdom that when we get still, go quiet, move into a meditative state and start to listen, we can get a tremendous amount of guidance. We can get creativity comes in, information comes in. We start to listen to a different impetus for movement. I think of it like the North Star keeps us guiding where we go, and we've learned, so we know which path, which way things are. And my North Star is my womb space. That's what I listen to first. My intellect, my brain, I have worked and cultivated that. It's working. I want to listen to my inner guidance, and I want to have a sensitivity to hearing what she has to say. And the practice, the deep practice with the stone, because it puts us into the kind of relationship it puts us into, really supports us accessing that piece of wisdom and that piece of guidance. So I want to go back over those 4 areas. It's a lot to take in and just like bam, bam, bam. So I'm going to back up, gave you the 4 areas, and now I'm going to go over each area just a bit, starting with the physical. So that physical is the door that lots of women come in through. Something's not working. Something's broken. Lubrication has changed. Sex is painful. My arousal, my libido, and very much related to also our age and our cycles and where we are in the phase of things. When we're younger, libido is typically a lot more accessible than when we get a little bit older because our hormones change. When you're young, your body wants to procreate whether you want to or not. You've got hormones that say procreate, procreate, procreate. And so that means horny shows up, sex shows up, libido's a little more accessible. That can be super cut off if there's been abuse or shame or guilt or any of those other things I mentioned. So it's not to take for granted that younger has more libido. That can be affected. But typically there's more younger, and it changes when we get older because our hormones change. However, I hear women all the time say things like, it's easier without the libido. I'm just as happy not having sex or being sexual or having a relationship with my yoni. And when we go a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper, what generally comes up is a deep sadness about being separated from our divine feminine essence. It's not about sex. It's about staying connected and being fully embodied. And to be fully embodied, again, this is a yogic practice, so we talk a lot about chakras, the 7 chakras, that energy map that shows us how we have energy in the different parts of our body. When this one's open, this one works better. And when this one's open, this one works better. And so if all 7 are open and aligned, I have more opportunity to be fully embodied and be more alive. It's absolutely more about being more alive. So I know some of you even who are here, I see your names, and I know some of you are here about finding and reclaiming and opening that vitality. So the physical part, the other physical part is, as you're approaching the stone, using the stone and approaching yoni, is beginning to know your own pleasure map. Beginning to know, so vulvas and the whole clitoral network, I say they're like snowflakes, like no 2 are alike. My vulva, my pleasure system in that vulva, how my clitoral network works, is unique to my landscape. So you don't get to look at a one picture of a vulva and say, oh, that's where the pleasure thing is, and that's how this works, and that, because there's no two that are alike. So I like to teach from my yoni pillow, or my yoni puppet. She's a talker. And I go very deep into knowing this vulvic landscape when you're in workshop with me, when you come to one of my retreats. We really go deep into all the different parts and knowing how they work. For a lot of us, we've been told the clitoris is the pleasure point. It's up here at the top. It's that little pearl. You give it some nice big round rubs, and you're going to find some pleasure. I want to say that there's a piece of that that is true, and that's a teeny tiny bit of the iceberg of the whole of the clitoris that begins with the beautiful pearl where all of the 8,000 nerve endings are at. But it ties into a network that is said to have 18 parts. It goes through this inner landscape, goes through the mouth of the vagina, comes down, goes over the perineum, and even around the anus. And so when we're not aroused, when this is all not aroused, this vaginal canal is very flat, it's very tight, and it's hard to penetrate. Women come to me often because penetration is difficult, and what we end up exploring is that actually it's not that penetration isn't difficult, it's that the arousal system hasn't had time to warm up. This plumps with blood. We have erectile tissue in here, just like the male-bodied penis has erectile tissue. The female-bodied has erectile tissue. Only our hard-on, our erection, is the shaft, and the pearl starts to stand up and reach. The lips fill with blood, the vaginal canal opens, there becomes space for penetration, lubrication begins, and the cervix actually moves up and into the body by 1 to 2 inches so that there becomes space to be penetrated. The jade egg is not about penetration. So when we're doing jade egg, instead of arousing, opening, and becoming orgasmic or headed toward that kind of arousal, we're going to take the stone and we're going to begin to communicate with our vaginal canal in a way where we can, through breath and meditation, begin to slowly open and move the vulvic area, the floor, and as we open, we will take the egg, open until we are able to, using the muscles of our vaginal canal, the first one is around the mouth, be able to open and pull that egg in. And we receive the egg. So for the first time, often, not always, for many of us, it's the first time that instead of yoni being penetrated with something and needing to open and receive the penetration, through a deeper meditative practice, we open our own pelvic floor, our own vulvic floor, and we call the egg in, and we pull and we magnetize. And when we start to do that with a stone, and when we start to articulate our relationship with the muscles, with the lips, with the shape, with our own unique snowflake, everything she does begins to change. How she interacts with a lover, how her overall health starts to change. This precious part starts to have more blood circulating through her, starts to increase hormone flow, because the blood flow and the movement and the rocking and the communicating is going to kick on hormones to move. The hormones are going to be what helps with menstrual time or menopausal time, get those going, helps with the mood, you get more chemicals going. Now you've got some light touch. The touch gets the serotonin and the dopamine and the oxytocin flowing. There is a whole bunch of physical reasons why relating to this precious part of yourself changes everything. It's often said how we do one thing is how we do everything. And if we are severed, if we are not fully embodied, if we are trying to just live from our head, that's what your life is going to look like, right? How we do one thing is how we do everything. If we're embodied if I'm alive, if I'm vibrant, if I know my pleasure, if I can find my own pleasure, if I can communicate to a lover, here's how my pleasure works. I'd love to invite you in, lover, and I'd like us to understand my pleasure because I'd like to understand yours. So the physical part of the practice is very important, and changes way more than what it may appear from the outside in. It is a subtle practice. Oftentimes, right after that egg goes in the beginning and you're new at it and the egg slips on in, many women, myself included, go, well, I can't feel anything now. There is no feeling. The stone has just disappeared. It's like wearing a tampon or a diva cup. I don't feel it once it's in there. And it's because there is not the same kind of sensory receptors like there is on our skin. So the skin of the vagina doesn't have sensation, but the muscles and the pulling and the moving. And there is a cluster in there called the sacred spot or the G spot, but it's a cluster of nerves that belongs to the back of the clitoris. Way too complicated to talk about that at this moment, but there is some sensation in there. And you start to move the egg up and down with the muscles, and you start to feel yourself grip it. And it's a slow, subtle practice, but you are changing the internal landscape. As you're working with that landscape, and that physical being the first thing that we impact, the next part is that this whole area, vulva, lips, vaginal canal, the inside, the lining, it is absorbent, it is membrane, and it takes things in. It's why it's susceptible to STIs. It's because it is a membrane, and so it's absorbent. The other thing it is absorbent of is energy, and how she has been loved or not loved, how she's been touched, how she's been approached, leaves an energetic signature. And if your precious parts have been in situations that don't always feel supportive to you, that don't feel good, sometimes we interact sexually when we don't want to. Sometimes we tolerate. Sometimes we've been abused. Sometimes we come from a lineage of abuse. Was your mother abused in her precious temple? Your grandmother, your great-grandmother? Because we came through that yoni, and through that birthing, we've brought some of that with us. In the culture that we live in, and what is happening, not just our culture, but globally, when we see things like female genital mutilation, when we see things like the non-acceptance of this beauty, that lands in all of us as the feminine. And so there is a tremendous amount, oftentimes, of dark emotion, energy block. And we know that illness is created in our bodies when things get blocked, when they get stuck, when our sinuses get stuck, we get sick. When our throat and our tonsils get stuck, when our heart gets stuck and hard, when things start to get energy can't pass through and blood flow slows down, they get sick. And the vagina isn't alone in that, and she's super absorbent, and there's a tremendous amount of healing to be had. And so the stone begins to work like a pressure point tool inside, massaging, moving, energizing, activating, stimulating the circulation. Your hands are working with the egg. Your heart is working with the egg. Your approach is working with the egg. And what many, many, many women experience is all sorts of surprising emotion that comes forward from using their egg. And different on different days, different on different times of your cycle, different in different times of the season. What shows up? We are very, very fluid feminine beings, and our yonis are just as fluid, feminine, and flowing. So using the stone as that emotional healing tool that allows us to internally massage, move the energy, emote, feel, the energy comes up, the emotions come up. A lot of Jade Egg practice is spent in tears, especially in the beginning, and laughter, and numbness, and fullness, and orgasm, and nothing, and everything. That's how a yoni works, and the stone helps us access it. As we're accessing that emotional healing, it moves into, this is where I was talking about the mental piece, that thinking, that intellect, a place where we have certain connectors that have been from a lifetime of how we've been with our yoni. We start to put things together, like sex like a pain, it's a problem, you just get and then you drag to that and you start to create those receptors, and we start to have a certain way of looking at it, or it's a certain, not just shy. I'm all about shy and private and knowing what's yours, but are we ashamed, and are we afraid, and are we blocked, and are we defended and don't get near, and I'm afraid of what she might do or how she might smell or what she might look like. So what happens, we're using the stone and we start to appreciate her scent, and we start to appreciate her arousal, and suddenly our relationship with her changes, and we become in alignment, and we open, and that changes a tremendous amount about our life and our sex. Moving into that fourth area of the divine feminine, or of the wisdom of the full body connection that comes from understanding, knowing, and working with yoni. When we access that part of our own feminine form, this female-bodied form. And female-bodied is important about Jade Egg practice. I have lots of male-bodied beings who ask about it all the time and want to come to the classes and want to hear about it. And I love teaching it to the male-bodied so that the male-bodied can learn about the female-bodied. But it's very important that Jade Egg practice is only for the female-bodied. It needs a vagina. A vagina has a top on it. The stone cannot go in and get lost. It can't go in and get stuck because the vagina has a top on it. If you were to use the stone in an anus doesn't have a top on it. Things can go up and continue to go up and create tremendous trouble. And so when you use any toy, tool, or practice in anus, it needs to have a foot on it so that when it goes into anus, it won't accidentally slip on up and continue up into the bowel. So this is a female-bodied tool. But I love teaching it to the male-bodied because they want to know. Which is another piece that comes out of this, and that is, for those of you who are in sexual relationship with male-bodied beings, is to be able to understand your own pleasure system, to know how this works, and then introduce and support your partner knowing about it. And I say for the male-bodied specifically because they don't have one to try and figure it out. If you're making love with women, chances are better that she's got one too, and you both know what that does together. But when you're with a male-bodied, really slowing down and helping them know how your particular snowflake works. I work with couples who've been married for 20 years and have never really talked about how her snowflake works or how his lingam works. And lingam is the word, Sanskrit word, that means wand of light or jade wand. And beginning to hold the lingam, which is the word for penis, but lingam as a sacred tool of divine union, that's a different workshop, but it is equally healing and important and life-changing to work into learning how to honor and love a lingam. So in using the stone, I want to move into some of the things about using the stone itself, whether you have jade or you have something else. Jade is, the other reason jade is highly suggested for this practice is it is a non-porous stone. So it doesn't take in any bacteria or hold any bacteria. You simply wash it in nice hot water and it's clear. They have a hole drilled in them, some of them. You can get them with a hole or without a hole. That depends on what you're working on. If you're working on strengthening pelvis, pelvic floor, vaginal canal, you're going to want to have a hole so you can use a string. If you're working on relaxing and softening and surrendering, you might not need to use the string. So my recommendation is get the hole, Use the string when you need the string. Don't use the string when you don't need the string, unless you know what you want is one without a hole and you feel confident about moving it in and out without the string. But I want to talk about the string, because the reason the string is removable is because the stone doesn't hold bacteria, but the string does. So you only want to use the string one time. It's not reusable. So dental floss is the way to go. And the reason dental floss is because it's already sterile. And I have a video on how to do this, so don't stress yourself out on it. I have a 5-part free video or email series that has some videos in it that walks you through much slower how to take the stone in without penetration. It's called sip and yawn. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, and how to string it. So you take a long piece of string and you fold it in half and you get that hoop in the middle, and you take that hoop and you put it through the hole. And then when it comes out the other side of the hole, you put the tail of the dental floss through the hoop. And I am in my rather dark temple. Let me see here. And this gets much easier the more often you do it. But you open that hoop after you've gone through the egg. You put the tail of the dental floss through the hoop. And then you pull it tight, and now you've got an easily removable and strong string to be able to do exercises with, as well as remove the stone until you become acquainted with how to move it with your muscles. Ultimately, you're going to learn how to move it up and down with your muscle, so you don't need to remove it with the string. You're going to actually move it by pushing it out, pulling it in, pushing it out, pulling it in. So these are non-porous. When you first get a jade egg, it's recommended that you boil it for 10 minutes. That's the other thing. They're super hardy. You can boil them. You can put really hot water on them. Other stones you have to be careful about, but you can boil it. Once you boil her and you've cleared off anything that was done to her before she got to you, the polishing, the handling, what have you, now she's yours. Now the cleaning in between can be as simple as hot water, like I said. Soap is not a good idea. Washing it with soap leaves a film, and then when you put it in, the film melts off, and now you've got soap film in your vagina, which is something that your vagina doesn't want. Your vagina has a happy flora fauna and doesn't want to have other things like that. So best not to use soap. If you're feeling like you want to do something a little stronger than just hot water, you can do a very diluted apple cider vinegar mix. You can do warm salt water, is a great cleanser, clearer. Hydrogen peroxide is a nice little dip. And then you let all of that dry off, and then it's all gone, so that the next time you use her, she's got nothing on her. She is considered a crystal stone, gemstone. So she does take on that part of moving the energy out of your body, the emotional piece, that piece. The stone does take on that energy. So if you're one who's into the medicine of crystals and stones, you'll want to energetically clear her. And if that's the case, selenite, which is the thin little stripy stone like so, having her next to selenite helps keep her energetically clear. Having her next to amethyst. I like to put her in the moonlight on full moon and let the moon energetically clear her. Moon is the feminine energy, sun is the masculine. So I like to put her in the moonlight, not the sunlight. So that's the taking care of her. She's pretty simple. I think the most important care thing I can say too is don't put her in your dresser drawer. It is a subtle practice, and it's likely to get forgotten. And my story about the egg is, when I first got given my first egg, I was at a Tantra workshop, and it came with the workshop, and we all got an egg, and we all got to do an egg class. And the classes, when we do Jade Egg class, and I do them here in this temple, I also travel. I just was in Boulder, Colorado. I was in Portland right before that. I'm doing one in the Bay. And so I go into those towns I just listed. And when I'm doing the Jade Egg in a class with women, it's very much like a yoga class, but I put us in a circle and all the heads to the middle, legs are pointed out, we're looking up at the sky, have skirts on, we're touching ourselves, we're working with ourselves, but in the way the room is arranged and the way that we're here with women with the same heart, it's a very safe kind of practice. And so that gives us an opportunity to be in the field of the feminine with other sisters who are also wanting to access all of the things I've listed. And the power of the feminine coming together in small groups like that, I also keep my classes really small. So powerful to be with women who are looking to go deeper with their own sacred sexuality and what we learn from each other. I do a 3-day weekend here called Tending the Temple, Sacred Care of Yoni. And we stay here at my house, and there's a hot tub and a gorgeous backyard, and we take over the whole house. And it gives us time. We have organic food, and I have this fabulous woman who cooks it for us. And I really make strong intention. I have 13 women, and I want young ones, and I want elders. And that we have the vitality young and kind of go get 'em energy that comes from the younger crowd. And we have the wisdom and the deep connection and the kind of insight to the world. And we don't often get to be with our elders. And we bring that together, and I have a spread of ages because we end up coming together and supporting, inspiring, validating, loving, and holding each other. It's the most beautiful connection to do Jade Egg with a sister. And when I say with a sister, when I first got my Jade Egg practice, I came home and immediately 2 of my girlfriends said, well, we want to learn Jade Egg. I said, I don't know what I'm doing. I just got taught it. And we ended up meeting weekly in one of our homes every Friday. And we would just do an hour of Jade Egg practice together. And each of us would come with different ideas and different exercises. And we were all yoginis, so we already knew yoga of asanas and yoga of breath. And we added it to our egg. And just doing that with those 2 sisters, that's been, 10 years now. And they're 2 of my besties. And what we created by being in sacred yoni space together is unduplicatable. I can't get that anywhere else than in sacred space with sisters. So if you have a sister who's interested in doing this, I really invite you to explore it with her. So I can see you all too. I see all your names, and I'm so delighted. There's so many of you here. I do believe you can type in questions. I think you can ask me some things here, and I'll see them come up. I want to talk about some that have been mailed into me while y'all do that. One of the ones that was mailed into me that really comes up a lot is for women who have prolapse going on, whether it's prolapse uterus or prolapse bladder or prolapse vaginal canal. Does the egg help with prolapse? And the answer is yes. It absolutely supports you exercising internally to strengthen and lift pelvic floor so that all of those other parts get supported. If you go read about bladder prolapse, vaginal prolapse, the vaginal canal itself has 3 muscle bands in it, and it wants to stay strong and upright. But if it starts to collapse in on itself and get squishy, other things can come down and push in on that vaginal wall from the outside in and can actually cause bulbs on the vaginal canal, creates painful situations, stretches that vaginal skin or membrane. And so we want to keep all of that lifted. And so even in watching myself in the camera, the lift of the body is what we want all the time, right? It's why, as a woman myself who's now post-menopause, my yoga, my exercise practice, my walking, my biking is intended because I want to keep my whole body in the lifted area way. And we naturally gravity's a real thing, and we naturally start to fall toward the gravity because we're pulled on all day long. So we've got the responsibility, if we want to stay healthy, to practice the lifting and the holding and the bringing upward. And the stone is going to help you do that. And so it supports any of that prolapse and helps bring that back, bring back that strength. So let's see if we've got some questions here. I see lots of names. I'm not seeing where the question types up. So let's see. And I also know there is a way to raise a hand. Don't want to call on anybody that doesn't want to be called on. If there's anyone who would like to actually speak, since I'm not seeing texting happening. Let's see, I'm going to chat with this person. Hi, Bruce's iPad. Let's see if Bruce can see me. Bruce's iPad. And Carrie. Hi, Carrie. Oh, and there's Gretchen. Hi, Gretchen. Good to have you. Glad you're here. Oh, so I want to talk to Carrie. Hi, Carrie. She sees me. I'm going to give you some practice ideas. So I can see the chat. So if anything's okay, great. Nikki asks, how often do you recommend doing the Jade Egg practice? Well, girlfriend, it's like going to the gym. How much outcome do you want to see? And the more you do it, the more benefit. It's really that kind of practice. So I have a daily practice that I'm not always good at. I will oftentimes get too busy or neglect that little piece of myself. But I call it a daily practice. It lives on, I have a selenite stand, and my egg, which is in me, so I can't show it to you, lives on that stand, and it lives right on an altar that's outside my bedroom door, so that I think about it when I'm going to bed and I think about it when I'm going to the shower, because wearing it when you sleep is one of the ways that you can passively internally work with the relaxation part, and in that relaxation part also access our feminine energetic dream time. In fact, in my 3-day workshop, one of the things we do together is yoni dreaming, and we all wear our egg to sleep at night. We ask a yoni question, and the next day, the wisdom that comes through that yoni is just remarkable. So I have her very available. There's also different ways to use her. I have yoga mats, and being on the mat, taking the egg to the mat, especially if you already have a yoga practice, and adding the egg to your yoga. So you're doing 20 or 30 minutes a day if you can fit that much in, 5 minutes a day if that's what you can fit in. The other place I often will use her is when I go to the shower. If I go take a shower, washing hair, a little bit of conditioner, I'll hold the egg in while I'm showering and have my shower be dedicated to my self-practice. So what you're going to learn is you're going to have to figure out, does your egg stay in when you get up and walk around, or does it fall out? That's going to be an information piece. If it's falling out, then one of the things you're going to want to work on is some strengthening. So I'm going to talk to you real briefly about strengthening and what strengthening might look like. Because the strengthening part is that you take the egg, and the egg goes in fat side first so that the egg string is holding out. And so if you put the egg in the vaginal canal, right, and that first muscle band that's right around the yoni opening or the vaginal opening, that's the first band. It works rather like a sphincter, right? So that's, for some women, that's the one that gives them the most trouble. Like this one can be really tight if you're not super aroused. So a little massage, a little gentle opening and softening. But once the egg gets in, we've got 3 muscle bands, and we're going to practice pulling the egg up and pushing the egg down, pulling the egg up and pushing the egg down. And what we're going to do is take that egg up as deep as we can get it. If you can't pull it up, I'm going to have you push it up. Then you're going to use your vaginal muscles to hold it. Just hold it for the count of 3, and you're going to pull on the string. So you're creating an internal isometric. So you're holding it and you're pulling. 1, 2, 3, release and let it come down. Not all the way out, just down to the mouth. Pause. Do it again. Pull the egg back up. If you don't yet pull it up, push it up. Hold it nice and tight. Pull tight, pull on the string, hold 1, 2, 3, let it go down. And that is the question that Gretchen just asked. Hi, Gretchen, is that it falls out when she stands up. And so part of that is just wanting to continue to strengthen those muscles and strengthen those muscles. And it's Cheryl that's on Bruce's iPad. Hi, Cheryl. Oh, I'm so glad you're here. That's so delightful. So that's a strengthening exercise. That's going to help with the being able to hold on to it longer and longer. So when you first start to sit up, I invite you to start laying flat and practice with the stone, just learning to take it in through the sip and yawn, which again I teach in my in my email series. Sip and yawn, learning to take the egg in, and you can do that laying down. Then you start to slowly, I'm going to have you roll around and let it massage inside. And then when you sit up, you're going to start to find out and explore. Does it stay? Does it fall out? And then what happens if I stand up? Now, this is all over days, weeks, months of practice. You're very likely going to stay in the lay down position for, gosh, weeks while you're learning and getting more comfortable with her and seeing what she wants to do when she's inside of you. The other question that just came up is the egg and the selenite stand available? The egg is available to purchase on my website. My supplier is on vacation for 2 more weeks. So if you order it from me right now, there's going to be a delay in delivery. But what I would say is if you get it from someone else, Polar Jade, Polar, Polar Jade is the jade that comes with the certification. We know where it came from. It's a mine in Canada. It's mined as sustainably and mindfully as we can find. And so Polar Jade, Polar Jade is my favorite, and it's the middle-sized Polar Jade stone. And I do not have the selenite stand. I found it at some new agey rock shop. It's actually a candle stand. It wants to have a tall candle in it, but it's perfect for the egg to sit in. So look for a selenite candle stand. So the laying down and sleeping with it. If you're sleeping with the stone in and you're letting it do the massage and the softening and the gentling, then the thing to remember, actually you have to remember this anytime, is you may forget you're wearing it, especially if you're starting to wear it around the house and if you're starting even to wear it out. Now that I'm in year, whatever this is, 10 of my practice, I will wear it for long periods of time, and I love wearing it to yoga class. I love wearing it to ecstatic dance. There's a core of us here in Ashland who are all regular Jade Egg practicers, and we'll run into each other in the grocery store, and we're wearing our eggs in the vegetable department. But until that time, what can happen is you'll forget it's in there, and then you'll go pee, and you'll go to the bathroom, and then it's quite startling because that's a really big sound when that falls out of your yoni and crashes in the toilet. Good news is jade doesn't break. If this were a rose quartz or an amethyst or a regular quartz or some of the gentler stones, when they drop, they can often crack. Most of the time, I've not heard of one breaking yet. They're very hardy, and I've dropped her many times. So the question is about my email series. So the email series that you sign up for on my website, thank you for asking about that. It's 5 different emails. It's going to give you a lot of what I've told you here. It's also going to give you some practices. There's a video of me that teaches you how to do sip and yawn. And sip and yawn, I'll just say real briefly, sip and yawn is when we start to communicate with our vulva, and we sip by opening our vulva floor. Yawn by opening it, and then sip and pull it in. So we start to, if you think of the vulva this way, she starts to reach for the egg. And so the egg sits here, and we yawn and open and sip and pull up. Yawn and open, sip and pull up. Yawn and open, sip and pull up. Oftentimes, that's 10, 15, 20, 30 sip and yawns before we really start to articulate how to open and how to grab. So there's a brief video that teaches you how to do that. There's a video about stringing it. There's a bit about the different stones. Rose quartz is for heart. Amethyst is intuition. There are some stones, caution note. If you just go into a regular rock shop, not a sex shop, but a rock shop, they can make anything shaped like an egg. And just because it's shaped like an egg doesn't mean it should be internal. So if you're going to use something other than the stones listed in my email series, I want you to really come online and check and make sure that it's not one that leaches. So right off the top, I'll tell you that malachite leaches, hematite leaches, selenite dissolves, tiger's eye leaches. So those are eggs that should not be used internally. Amethyst, quartz, rose quartz, carnelian, and obsidian. Obsidian is a really powerful, also non-porous stone that's considered to be the most advanced stone. It's a fire stone. Part of the not the absorbent part that doesn't take on the bacteria, the quartzes can get little tiny cracks or fissures in them, because that's how amethyst and rose quartz looks. As you can see the beauty of the patterns, but oftentimes those are actually open fissures and will take in the bacteria, and then you end up entering the bacteria in the next time you use the egg, and you can't boil them because they're too fragile. So you have to really pay close attention if you have any of those, to make sure those fissures aren't cracking, aren't super open, and that you are washing it well. Oh, let's see. What else do I want to tell you in this particular class? I do want to talk a little bit of three things. One is, I've said a lot of things and covered a lot of territory, not just about the egg, but egg is one of the things I do. But when we start working with the egg and we start opening her voice and listening to our deeper, intimate self, other things arise. And I work with all genders in really supporting them finding their own sacred intimacy self. And so if any of this conversation has opened up other kinds of things that you want to talk about, that you feel like you need to dive into, relationship issues, sex issues, libido, whatever that might be, I offer a 45-minute free call. And I really want to invite you to take me up on that. That it's like, I call it a breakthrough call. And its intention is to help you identify what is it you'd like to explore more of for yourself. And so lots of times I end up saying, oh, there's this workshop team, or there's this experience, or you could take this homework assignment home with your lover. And 45 minutes, you'd be surprised how much I can give you in 45 minutes about your own journey into your sacred sexuality. Thank you, Kasha. I see you expressing gratitude for me doing this. So thank you. And thanks for noticing. I'm excited to be here. So the 45-minute free call, I really want to genuinely invite you to sign up for it. And not this week. I am I'm attending a Tantra retreat this week for my own inspiration and aliveness. So I will be back the following week. I also have my 3-day Tending the Temple workshop that's coming up the last weekend in May. Space for 13. We stay here. You get to stay at my place. And we go deep. We dance with Yoni. We start to intuit and learn how to let our movement even come from our womb space. That's a real challenge and a skill. I say she gets to move, she gets to dance, she gets a voice, she gets to be seen, and she gets to be anointed. So Yoni gets to have a weekend of sacred, I call it Tending the Temple, that we come together for 3 days to tend the sacred landscape of our temples together. And we use the jade egg throughout the weekend. It's not a jade egg weekend. We use the egg as a tool over the course of the weekend for our dreaming, for our dancing, for our movement, for our going deep, and for our connecting. So the 3-day weekend is really a powerful opportunity for us to listen to that North Star of womb space, to ask for guidance, receive guidance, listen, hear her voice. Yoni speaks a lot to us, and we don't always listen very well. And when we do listen, it's because she's screaming. And so I want to invite you to get more subtle than that and to go deeper and to really open your heart to hear what she has to say to you. So we do that over the course of the weekend, and it's a lovely time. I also, because I do travel to Portland, the Bay, and Denver, if any of you are from any of those areas and would like to be specific on those email lists for when I'm in those areas, I love to come when invited. So if you have a women's event coming up, or if you have somewhere that you're going that you'd like me to come, I can come and do not just this basics, but I have a one-day immersion where we spend a day in somebody's living room, going deep into what our yoni has to say to us and how to approach her in a new way. Let me take a breath. In fact, I invite you to take a breath wherever you're at, just feeling yourself in contact with the earth underneath you, in contact with your body. And I invite you to bring your hands over the center of your chest if you're in a place that would allow for that. Where you can just take a few breaths with your palms directly connected to heart space. And as you hold your own heart, and take a deep inhale and bring the breath from pelvic floor up into heart. When you exhale, take heart down into pelvic floor. I'm going to show you a little exercise here. Take a deep inhale, bring pelvic floor up. And exhale, slide your right hand down the center of your body and just cup your vulva. Take your hand like this and just cup your vulva. And feel what happens when you breathe between heart and vulva. When you inhale, let your spine come forward, your heart open, your shoulders go back, your chest comes forward. And when you exhale, your heart goes in, your spine rounds, and you lift your pelvic floor. On the next inhale, bring your hand back up. In your next exhale, take your other hand down and cup your vulva. And inhale and exhale. And inhale and exhale. Inhale. On the exhale, take your right hand down so both hands cup vulva. Letting your hands send light, send love, send radiance into your pelvic floor. And on your next inhale, slide your left hand back up to your chest and round. Inhale and exhale. Inhale, bring your right hand up, both hands over chest. Exhale, left hand down. As you start to do that with your movement, you'll do it at your own inspiration. When are both hands down? One hand up. And start to feel that energetic thread that goes from the center of your chest down to pelvic floor and back up and back down and back up and back down. And both hands back up on the heart. And breathe. Audible exhale if you're a place where you can do that. Opening throat. This area of throat and jaw, continuing to breathe, is directly related to hips and vagina. When you see a picture of the throat, it looks so much like a vagina when you look in this way. It's this little opened, narrow, and all of this, here's a science piece, my pelvic floor down low, all of this, if I didn't have a spine, it just sits right inside the pelvic floor. They are directly related and connected through not just the body, not just the spine, but what's called the vagus nerve that comes up from the pelvic floor through our respiratory, our sound, and into our brain. It's the vagus nerve that allows the pleasure that happens in yoni to move up and activate the pleasure sensors and the place in our brain. So connecting all of this opens us to being able to feel more, love more, breathe more, and be in our full embodiment and live into the pleasure that we were born to be able to appreciate, our birthright of pleasure. Bringing your hands down from wherever they are, give yourself a little body brush. And just releasing anything that does not serve, feeling the energy running through your body, the opening of all of those chemicals, movement, the shifting, and the beauty. I invite you wherever you are with your jade egg practice, and I look at the names and I know some of you have your eggs, you've been to my weekends, you've been to my one days, you're here for refresher, you're here because it deepens every time you hear about it. You're here because every time you hear it, you get something new. And so wherever you are in your own sacred yoni connection, I invite you to continue on that path and just take it deeper and deeper and deeper. Coming to the weekends or going to a jade egg class or whatever, it's very much like yoga. We don't ever get done. I have women that come to the 3-day weekend again and again and again because each time they come, they deepen a little bit in themselves. They deepen a little bit in their own heart and they deepen in their connection. So I invite you. I'd love to talk with you. Remember my call. I'm looking to see if there's any other questions. I've got thank yous and learned so much. Kaylin is here. Thank you, Kaylin. Good to have you. Gretchen, so good to have you. Thank you for your appreciation. I do love you so. And Nikki, thanks again too. Oh, it's Kelly. Oh, hi, Kelly. Nikki is Kelly. Yay. So glad to have you. Christy, thank you so much. Yeah, you're welcome, Christy. Good to have you. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening. I am going to send this out to, I had a good sign up. I'm so excited. So I'll be sending it out to those who aren't here, and I'll be sending it out to you as well so you can watch it again. So thank you so much and have a lovely rest of your evening. Thanks for being here. Bye-bye.